Okay, so welcome to another video. Today I wanted to focus on this problem called moveZeroes. So the problem says, given an array nums, write a function to move all zeros inside of the array to the end of the array while maintaining the relative order of the non-zero elements. Okay, so initially when I read this, I thought we were sorting, but as you can see here, we're not sorting the array and then like putting the zeros at the end. It's just the way that the array and the elements in it were passed into you. You're just going to move all of the zeros to the end, but keep the order of the array as it was passed into you, whether it's unsorted or sorted. Yeah, so as you can see here, you have nums is equal to 0, 1, 0, 3, and 12. And then your new, well, not your new array, but like your modified array is 1, 3, 12. So with this, we're not going to create a new array because one, that's going to take up more space, and that's also going to like slow down your time complexity. So we're going to try to do this in a relatively efficient way. There's a much more efficient way to do this, but this is the way that I like um, to do it, and this is what I know, and it works. So we're going to teach you this. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure to check if the array is null or if the array has no content inside of it. Okay, so this is a void method, but what I'm going to do is null, or if nums.length is equal to 0. Although it is a void method, a cool thing you can do is that you can return inside of a void method. You just don't want to have an expression after your return statement. So if you don't have an expression after your return statement, your method's essentially going to return nothing. It's basically just going to terminate the program so that it'll stop running, because once you hit one of these marks, whether you pass in a null array or you pass in an array with no content, it's just going to terminate the method and then nothing's going to happen. But if you passed in like a valid answer, what we want to do is that we know we want to loop through the array. We want to check the value of the content inside of the array. Okay. These are just some of the objectives we want to do. We want to make sure to move all zeros to the end, but we also want to make sure to keep the original order of non-zeros. Okay. So how I imagine doing this is that I want to go ahead and have like an int variable, and this is going to act as my pointer. And this pointer's job is basically to point to where I'm going to start placing my zeros inside of my array. Okay. So actually, yeah, this pointer is going to do two things. It's going to point to where I'm going to put the non-zero elements at the front, and then it's also going to point to where I'm going to start putting the zero elements at the end. So you'll see what I mean. So I'm not good with names. I like to call it zero start because it's basically going to tell me when I'm going to be able to start adding zeros into my array. And it's just going to be equal to 0 because pointing at the first indice. And then I want to loop through the array. Right, so I'm going to just do a for each loop because the indice of the array that I'm looking at doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to say int n. And then, so n is basically pointing towards the element inside of the array at the point in the for each loop. So it's basically saying the same thing as like nums, and basically like this entire thing is equal to n. Right? So that's basically what it's saying. It's saying this value is the same thing as n. So we're just going to call it n. And then I'm going to say nums because we're searching through our array. And then I'm going to have a temporary int variable. And this temporary int variable is basically what we're pointing to, the element that we're checking. And this is just going to hold the value of the element that we're looking at. So then I want to have an if statement that checks whether the value that n or temp, basically the same thing, are pointing at, if it's a 0. or if it's not a 0. So I want to say if the value that I'm pointing at inside of this array isn't a 0, I want to assign that value to the front of the array because we're starting from the front of the array. So we have an int 0 start, right? So I'm saying if at nums 0 start, which is right now, it's at 0. So I'm saying if the value at this point is not equal to 0, meaning that it's like it's 1, right? I want to assign, no, if the value at n, sorry, is not equal to 0. So we're looking at the original array. So this is 0, so it wouldn't pass. But then we get to here, and we're saying, okay, this is not 0. So what I want to do, I have 0 start, which is pointing towards the front of the array. So I just want to assign the temporary value that was the first occurrence of the non-zero number, and then I want to increment 0 start, because then that'll shift the indice that my array is pointing at so that I can place the other non-zero values. So then we have the if statement, and then that's it for our for loop. So we loop through the array, check the value, move all the zeros to the end. So our next task is to move all of the zeros to the end. You could do a for loop. But what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do I'm gonna do a while loop. So 0 start has been incremented. So it's basically in like shifting our pointer. So I don't know. Let's say my cursor right here is the pointer. So initially we were here and we checked, and then we found a 1, and then we put the 1 there. So now it's pointing towards the first indice 1, and then we put it, it's like a 2 or a 3, and then we shifted, and then we shifted, and then we finally we passed all of our non-zeros. We only have 3, 1, 2, 3 non-zeros. So we incremented every time that we found a non-zero number. So now we have 3. And now I want to start adding the zeros at index 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. And that matches up because we have 2 zeros, and that'll fill up the rest of the array right there. So I'm going to, basically your for loop would start from 0 start, and it would continue for the length of the original array. So I'm just saying while 0 start is less than nums.length. I want to assign the value at that point to 0 start, basically the indice that's pointing at where I need to start adding in zeros. And then I'm just adding in zeros for the rest of the array. And then as I do that, I'm incrementing 0 start so that we can progress inside of the array, adding the zeros. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Why would I do that? Wow, that was cool. Okay, so we can delete these comments. A bit on time. Okay. So let me zoom in a little bit. So 0 start. Right, everything's closed. Okay, so what I can do is I can kind of shorten rather than having it increment there. I can just have it. Basically, what this is gonna do, it's gonna add the value and then it's gonna increment. It's doing the same exact thing, and then I'm just gonna do the same thing here, and this is just shortening your number of lines. Not do that. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this. Yeah, that should be it. Let's check if it works. Wow, okay, cool. Line 12, 4 int nums. 4 int n. A legal start. What? Of type? I'm confused. 4 int n. I'm confused. yeah, so sorry, the compilers was acting weird. So yeah, so we have this, and I just want to optimize it, make it a bit shorter. Plus plus and plus plus and that should be it. See if it still works. Yeah, so it works. Alrighty. Thank you for watching.